mother turkey barely relies on what her chicks look like, or smell like, or feel like. Virtually all of her mothering runs on one thing, a specific cheep call. Researchers wanted to see how far that would go, so they took a stuffed polecat. In the wild, a polecat is a turkey's natural enemy, the kind of predator a mother turkey will attack on sight, no hesitation. They wired a small speaker inside it, playing the recorded chirp of a baby turkey chick. Then they rolled the fake predator toward a nesting mother. She didn't attack. She gathered it under her wing like it was her own baby, turned the speaker off, and the same mother turkey would tear that exact same stuffed predator to pieces. One sound, flipping a life or death instinct like a light switch. Early in Robert Cialdini's influence, that same experiment becomes a kind of model for the whole book, and it sets up an uncomfortable question. How much of supposedly rational, thinking human behavior runs on the same kind of switch? Cialdini spent years going undercover, training as a salesman, a fundraiser, an advertiser, to find out. He came back with 6 of them. 6 triggers other people can pull, on purpose, to get you to say yes, without you ever feeling persuaded at all. The first one goes back 50 years before Cialdini even started researching it. In 1985, a massive earthquake leveled parts of Mexico City, but one donation was especially strange. It came from the Ethiopian Red Cross. Which was strange, because at that exact moment, Ethiopia was in the grip of one of the worst famines of the century. People were starving there, and yet Ethiopia sent money to Mexico. Cialdini tracked down the explanation. In 1935, Mexico had sent aid to Ethiopia when Italy invaded the country. 50 years, vast distance, no ongoing relationship, and the debt still got repaid the moment Ethiopia was able to repay it. That's reciprocation, one of the most deeply rooted social rules we have. Give someone something, even something small, and you create a psychological debt. It doesn't matter if they asked for it. It doesn't matter if they even wanted it. This is why a supermarket hands you a free sample before asking you to buy the product. Why the charity mails you address labels before it asks for a donation. The gift comes first, on purpose, because once you're holding it, saying no gets a lot harder. And the same pressure works even without a gift. Cialdini found it hiding inside a negotiating tactic. Ask for something big first, get turned down, then retreat to the smaller ask you actually wanted. Your retreat reads as a concession, and the other side feels the pull to concede something back. The second one showed up in a much darker setting, Chinese POW camps during the Korean War. Rather than relying primarily on brute force, the Chinese captors used something much subtler. They started with something almost embarrassingly small, getting a prisoner to agree that, sure, no country is perfect, not even the United States. Then they'd ask him to list a few of those problems and sign his name to it. Later, they'd have him read that list out loud in a discussion group with other prisoners. After all, wasn't that what he'd already written down himself? Still later, they'd ask him to expand it all into a full essay. Each step was small enough to feel harmless. But once a man had said something, signed it, spoken it out loud in front of others, his own mind started treating it as something he actually believed. Not because the guards convinced him, because he'd convinced himself, one small step at a time. That's commitment and consistency. Once we take a small stance and put our name on it, out loud, in writing, in public, we feel enormous internal pressure to stay consistent with it, even if the original stance meant nothing. Once you've acted in line with a position, staying consistent with it can start to feel like following your own evidence. The third one comes from a single night in 1964 in a quiet Queens neighborhood in New York. A woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked outside her apartment building in an assault that dragged on for over half an hour. Dozens of neighbors reportedly heard her screams. Almost none of them called the police. The exact numbers from that night were later found to be exaggerated by the original reporting, but the case still pushed researchers toward a real, well-documented effect. The story stunned the country, and psychologists went looking for an answer that wasn't just, people are cruel. What they found was almost the opposite. The more witnesses there are to an emergency, the less likely any single one of them is to act, because each person looks around, sees nobody else moving, and quietly concludes that maybe it isn't actually an emergency at all. That's social proof. We look to the people around us to decide what's correct, especially when we're uncertain. It's efficient most of the time. It's also exactly why a bartender salts the tip jar before opening and why a sitcom pipes in canned laughter. Nobody has to tell you it's popular. They just have to make it look like other people already decided it was. The fourth one made one man, by his own accounting, the best car salesman on the planet. Joe Girard sold more cars than anyone else alive, year after year, and his method had almost nothing to do with the cars themselves. Every single month, he mailed a card to every past customer, more than 13,000 of them, and every card said some version of the same 3 words: I like you. No pitch attached, no upsell, no time for a new model. Just that one line from a man who'd sold them a car once and never stopped reminding them he liked them. We say yes to people we like. That's the whole rule, and it barely needs proof. It's why we buy from friends before strangers, why an attractive stranger gets the benefit of the doubt in a courtroom, why a compliment works on us even when we half suspect it's calculated. Liking short-circuits our skepticism. Girard didn't discover that. He just industrialized it, turning basic human warmth into a mailing list. The fifth one shows just how far people will follow a shortcut, even when every instinct should be screaming to stop. In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram ran an experiment where ordinary volunteers were told to deliver electric shocks to another person every time that person answered a question wrong. Shocks that climbed, step by step, all the way up to 450 volts, a level clearly marked as dangerous. The person supposedly being shocked was an actor. Nobody was actually hurt, but the volunteers didn't know that. They heard what sounded like real screaming, real pleading to stop, and a clear majority of them kept going anyway, simply because a man in a lab coat standing right there calmly told them to continue. Not because they were cruel people, because a legitimate authority figure took responsibility off their shoulders, and once that happened, the decision stopped feeling like theirs to question. Most of the time, that instinct serves us well. Nobody has the hours to personally verify every doctor, pilot, or engineer, so trusting real expertise saves enormous effort. The risk is that we don't just respond to real expertise, we respond to its symbols. That's the mechanism behind the white coat, the uniform, the impressive job title, the visible markers of status. None of it proves anything on its own. It just borrows the same switch Milgram found in that lab. And once it's flipped, people stop asking whether the instruction actually makes sense. The sixth one showed up in a phone call. In the early 1970s, wholesale beef buyers in the U.S. started getting calls from their supplier. One group got the standard sales pitch, nothing else. A second group got that same pitch, plus a warning that imported beef might soon turn scarce. A third group got that same warning, but were also told the information was exclusive, coming from a private source, not something every buyer was hearing. The first group ordered at their usual rate. The second group ordered about twice as much. The third group ordered 6 times as much. That's scarcity. And the experiment shows something even more interesting sitting right on top of it. Limited availability increased demand. Limited availability plus exclusive information increased it dramatically further. The product felt scarce, and so did the knowledge about it. The moment something feels limited, our brain quietly reclassifies it as more valuable, whether or not its actual usefulness changed at all. That's why sellers emphasize a limited supply or a closing deadline. Scarcity doesn't make something function any better. It changes how painful losing the opportunity feels, and losing is a feeling we'll pay almost anything to avoid. 6 switches: reciprocation, commitment, social proof, liking, authority, scarcity. Cialdini's real argument isn't that any of them are evil. Most of the time, they're just efficient shortcuts, the same kind of automatic shortcut we saw in the mother turkey, running on autopilot instead of thinking through every threat from scratch. The danger only shows up when someone else learns exactly which switch you run on and starts flipping it on purpose, for their benefit instead of yours. The real problem is never that you have shortcuts. It's when somebody else understands your shortcut better than you understand the decision you're actually making. Influence goes a lot deeper into exactly how each of these plays out in real negotiations, real scams, real everyday moments you'd never even notice, genuinely worth grabbing a copy. So the next time you feel a sudden, oddly strong urge to say yes to a stranger's small favor, to a deal that's about to disappear, to a person in a uniform who clearly seems to know better, it's worth pausing for 1 second and asking whether that urge is actually yours, or whether something or someone just quietly hit play. If this kind of thing is useful to you, hit subscribe. The algorithm actually puts more of these in front of people who do.